Today I'm going to talk to you about some the issues with FDA's Egg Safety Rule. It was started to be implemented in 2010. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Egg Safety Rule, the response of industry, and some of the implementation of the rule by FDA. This components of the FDA Egg Safety Rule are written here. Each producer has to have a written plan, SE plan, has to have a designated person that's responsible for administering this plan on a farm. And these are the plan contents. They have to have negative pullet procurement. Most of them, they have to have negative or pullets from the NPIP tested program. They have to have a rodent monitoring and plan for control, flies as well. Have to have a testing program for pullets, layers, and at 40 to 45 weeks and post-molt. So there's 3 testings, verifications. Have to have a plan for refrigeration of eggs within 1.5 days of production. A biosecurity plan to prevent transmission between houses. Plan for if they have a positive house of C and D of that house between flocks. Holding eggs. If they're manure positive, they have to hold eggs off the market, or they have a chance for a recall by FDA until the egg tests are done. A plan for diversion of eggs if they're egg positive, and records for all above. So it's pretty comprehensive. A lot of this was taken from a lot of the egg quality assurance programs such as Pennsylvania, Ohio, California, and they pretty much duplicated a lot of these aspects of the plan. This was put in the Federal Register in July 2009 for implementation for the larger farms over 50,000 layers starting 2010. So we've been into this almost 2 years now. And for these smaller operations from 3,000 to 49,999 layers, it starts this year. And there's a lot more farms of the smaller operations, the cage-free operations. There's going to be a lot more of those than we have the larger farms. Anything under 3,000 layers is exempt. Right after, one thing that happened right after the implementation of the plan, we had a major recall of eggs. As you recall, in the summer of 2010, the Wright County egg operations were responsible or implicated in a huge recall of eggs. You can see here the number of cases reported over the summertime. This actually probably started earlier than that. But up until this point, we had not had a major outbreak for, maybe 12 years. But unfortunately, the timing was such that, it happened, and I know FDA, it really helped FDA's to justify their putting this plan into place. What is happening on SE and human prevalence in the United States? This is some data from Gingerich, the USDA ARS, taking the Salmonella incidents in the United States from FoodNet and applying this with the information on SE or Salmonella serotypes. You can see we're actually, the 2010 outbreak in eggs is probably responsible for that uptake, increase, but you can see we're pretty steady. We have not made a big dent in the SE prevalence in the United States. And some of this is probably due to the attribution of SE is not separated into the different types of foods. We are seeing, there's some research that was done actually at CDC showing that broiler meat made in the house, that was prepared in the house, was actually implicated in a higher incidence of SE in that situation. In the broiler industry, there is some information that there's quite a bit of increase in SE in broiler breeders. This transfers over to broilers. And they're finding a lot more SE isolates on the broiler carcass rinses in these plants as well. So there's a big project going on with the broiler breeder industry right now, and FSIS, to try to decrease SE in broiler meat. So some of this reason for not being able to reduce SE is probably due to other factors. This is just some information I had compared to Europe, where they're seeing a great reduction in SE, probably due to their major sources of SE there were eggs. They put a lot of emphasis on programs in the EU. Plus they've gone, as you know from Gene Gregory's talk, that they're transitioning from cages to cage-free. So there's a lot of new housing. And we see this in the United States as well. New housing really is, you don't have as much SE problems because they're building into these newer houses capabilities of reducing flies, rodents, which are very highly correlated with SE positivity. So there's a couple of reasons for the EU having such a reduction. We're still ahead of them as far as SE per 100,000 people, probably due to our washing of eggs and also refrigeration requirements, which the EU does not have. So what's been the response to industry? They have taken this, there were several states before the FDA program came into place, such as Pennsylvania, Ohio, California, other states that had egg quality assurance programs in place, and they were well ahead of the game. They'd already made great strides in reducing the prevalence of SE in their flocks. But there's a lot of other states, major states like Iowa, did not have any programs. Indiana was another one, that they were well behind the ball game, so to speak, as far as their producers actually looking into the factors that are involved with SE. So a lot of them have now increased their efforts. Unfortunately, in Iowa, they started vaccinating too late. They had about half their flocks at Wright County vaccinated by the time of the outbreak. So vaccination is one very important tool that we're using. Pest control improvements is a big aspect. We're starting to use a lot of intestinal health aids and trying to look at feed-related contamination, trying to reduce that, and the refrigeration aspect. Firstly, I wanted to also look at the cost of a positive manure test. This is really a driving force behind this to go negative, get your manure test positive. As you know, we have these manure tests, drag swabs, either in the high-rise house, they go over the manure in the pit, or in we have a lot of manure belt houses now that you swab the manure belts and then submit that to the lab to see if the manure is positive. So the cost of testing is listed here. If you have a positive manure test, you have to test eggs. In 20 egg pools, you have to test a total of 4,000 eggs. And 200 total pools, depending on the lab you go to, it could be anywhere from $10 to $50 per pool. So that's a pretty good investment in laboratories, $2,000 to $10,000. And these are not subsidized by any means. The egg producer has to foot that bill. Also, you have to, most of the producers are withholding eggs. If they allow these eggs to go onto the shell egg market and they end up finding out that these eggs are positive, FDA will ask you very strongly to recall those eggs. And that is something you don't want to do. So depending on the test we're using, we have to hold these eggs anywhere from, we have tests now that can get this done in 27 hours, or if you use the conventional testing, it's 10 days. So most people are now opting, they send their eggs to a lab that can do these quick tests that are done in 27 hours. That helps greatly. Also, the cost of an egg positive, it requires, these eggs, 40,000 eggs over an 8-week period. So during that period of time, if you have an egg positive, you're going to have to divert these eggs to breaking or hard cooking. I just used an example of prices. This is back in February of 2011. The price differential between shell eggs and breakers is still about the same. Today I looked it up. It's about, actually it's a little higher now, it's about 40 cents difference. So if you look at that, over an 8-week period, normal flock, we're normally going to test these at 40 to 45 weeks, and say from 42 weeks to 50 weeks, you're going to produce about 3.9 dozen eggs, and at 40 cents or 34 cents a dozen, that's about $1.33 a hen. That's pretty substantial. For 100,000 birds, that's over $133,000 to a producer, and that's usually about their profit margin right there. Vaccination, like I said, is used quite often to try to reduce the risk of positivity. Usually, if we're using the Bactrim, which is probably the most effective, got a little information on that, usually done at 13 to 15 weeks by injection. There are live vaccines, Salmonella typhimurium vaccines available. Some producers, I was going to say that probably about 90% of the producers in the U.S., shell egg producers, are using the Bactrim. Some breaker people go all to breaker markets that are using this vaccine as well. Some operations opt to just use the live vaccines, and they would give these. An example is 2, 6, and 12 weeks. Some do it as early as 1 day, 2 weeks, and 12 weeks, something like that. A program. The most common program is use both. Use the live vaccines first to prime the birds for the Bactrim used at 13 to 15 weeks. Vaccine costs, it's about half a cent for a live vaccine per dose. For Bactrim, it's about 8 cents. With the Bactrim, you have to add 5 cents. It's just 5 cents a bird for handling, and 2.5 cents for the vaccine. A lot of people use a 3-way vaccine: Newcastle bronchitis and Salmonella enteritidis. Live vaccine during lay. This is another option that there was some work done by Peter Holt at USDA that showed there was some efficacy prior to mold to reduce shed and infectivity of the birds using this vaccine. So this is something that producers have available to them. These are live vaccines. They're not human pathogens. They're mass supplied. There's no handling required. So it is a relatively inexpensive way to boost your immunity during production. For vaccine efficacy, this is some work that was done in the PCAP, or Pennsylvania Quality Assurance Program. They pulled the data out. They could identify as flocks that had received Bactrim or flocks that did not receive Bactrim. You can see here the percent that were SE manure positive with no Bactrim, about 10%. And the ones that received Bactrim had a very reduced percent of positivity, less than 4%. So it does help to reduce your risk of a positive manure test. As far as egg testing, with Bactrim, this represents about 1 flock out of this set of data. With the no Bactrim, you had a very much higher risk of egg positivity. It's about figured up that for a manure positive flock, about 33% of the flocks in the PCAP program were egg positive. So if you don't use Bactrim, you're have a lot higher risk. Rodent control is found to be highly correlated to SE positivity way back in the SE pilot project in the 90s. They developed a rodent index in Pennsylvania that is most commonly used in the egg operations, where we place these live traps called tin cats, and you count the mice every 7 days, and you get an index that shows if it's a low incidence or moderate or high. Anything above 1, you have to have in your plan some kind of action that you're going to do to try to reduce that. If you get up to high, you're going to have to hire more people or hire a company to come in and try to help you out. There's an integrated approach they're using, seclusion of rodents from the houses. A lot of these companies have actually hired a specific one person to that's his job, is to monitor rodents and control all these aspects. Reduction of harborage areas and baiting is a part of their programs. For fly controls, they have to, it has been shown that flies can carry SE from the manure to the hens. Again, it requires an integrated approach using these various aspects. They have to have a monitoring program in place and have to have an action level that their monitoring shows, and they have to act on that if they have too high a level of flies. For intestinal health, water sanitation, any type of, if you have bacterial contamination in your water, this can cause inflammation in the intestines, cause them to be more susceptible. Various feed additives are being used quite often now. We're not using antibiotics, that's a no-no, but there are a lot of natural type products available, probiotics, prebiotics, our product here, fermentation products, things like that, to reduce the risk. A lot of these have some research behind them that shows that they will reduce risk of SE. Feed contaminations are concerned after the findings at Wright County that they actually isolated SE from some meat and bone meal in that feed mill. Most now are testing ingredients prior to receiving the feed mill. They ask their suppliers to assure them that it is tested negative before it comes in. They have to be any meat products they're using. Some have actually restricted meat and bone meal products from their diets. If they do use meat and bone meal, they have to be on this APPI program for salmonella reduction. And some actually are using anti-salmonella treatments in their feed to try to eliminate salmonella from the feed using formaldehyde or organic acids. There's a relatively new program from AFIA that it's Safe Feed, Safe Food program. That it's a third-party audited program that is useful in certifying that they're under a proper HACCP type program to produce safe feed. So refrigeration issues, I said before that you have to have these eggs stored at 45 degrees ambient temperature by 36 hours after laying. Some operations, especially these smaller cage-free operations, their egg rooms are not very well insulated. They, prior to this, were holding eggs at 55 degrees. They had no problem doing that, but some of the summer months, it's very difficult for them to do that. They're having to upgrade their facilities and re-insulate, add new cooler capacity. One operation in Indiana said they were spending over $250,000 just to upgrade their refrigeration units. And they need to have a good record of the refrigeration issue or refrigeration on these farms. Getting into FDA's inspections and implementation, they inspected the high-risk farms first that they had issues in the past. A second tier is still underway. They have not announced their plan for inspections starting with the smaller farms yet. They're still continuing with some of the operations of the larger farms. As far as I know, they're going to start either the third or fourth quarter of this year for these smaller farms. What they will do in the inspection is overview the written SE plan with all these various things that I mentioned before. They will overlook these programs they have in place, their sampling procedures, results. You have to keep records of results. Have to have a plan for diversion. If eggs are at a particular farm given a treatment, such as pasteurization or such. If they are pasteurized, they don't have to go through any other things other than refrigeration. And then their records of review and modifications of the SE plan and any corrective actions. They will look at all these documents during their inspections. The key to passing these inspections is say what you do and then do what you say in these written documents. They have to have a valid programs for all the key components, as you can see here, and have records to show that. Some of the reasons for failure that have been reported, they don't have any record that chicks are from, they don't have their documentation that the chicks are from NPIP sources. No records of times. They want times of any activity and who did it. They want you to sign off. Some didn't have any rodent control records. Some didn't have any record of compliance to their biosecurity program or notes. Some didn't even have a site-specific SE plan. They have to have each site has to have its own plan. For pest control, it was obvious going through houses that they didn't have any rodent control or mice running everywhere, and some operations let down their guard and let this happen. And they got one operation in Indiana actually they diverted all their eggs to breaking out of a whole complex because of this. Failure to follow the frequency of monitoring stated in their plan. Stray animals are getting in the houses. That's a no-no. Failure to keep the grass mowed, things like that. And record keeping. A lot of this is record keeping. They aren't keeping the proper records. Some actually did not maintain 45 degrees temperature or below. Testing. Again, if you're outside that window of testing, by one day you'll not pass. They'll fail you, and you'll get a 483 report. Some did not test eggs after a positive manure test. This is a very big no-no. And they were shipping eggs from an egg-positive flock. That is not good. Biosecurity, failure to maintain any practices to prevent cross-contamination when workers are moved between houses. Especially equipment that's used between houses. They want that cleaned up between houses. An issue that did come out of the Wright County investigation was that they found Salmonella heidelberg in some pullet samples. And because Salmonella heidelberg has been implicated in the past in human illness, they are going to treat SE. If they find it in your records or anywhere, they'll treat that like an SE. But they do not have a program to address HS at this point. So what this means for the lab or the producer is that you have to ask your lab do not report any Salmonella heidelberg on your lab test. Just say SE negative or not. And the FDA is not actively looking for this during their inspections, so that's good to know. So in summary, the battle to control SE is going to continue. As you can see from our history, we still have some ways to go to get down below the level that CDC wants us to. SE positivity is expensive. You want to do everything you can to reduce that. Implementation by these smaller producers is going to be a challenge. There's a lot of these producers that still today are not up to date with their record keeping and things, and have a long way to go. And the FDA Egg Safety Plan is resulting in increased actions against SE in all states, as it was intended. It's got a lot more states involved with programs, a lot of more egg producers involved, and not just those that had egg quality assurance programs. So it is working.